The sleek, menacing Black Beauty rolling through 1,960 seconds TV screens hid secrets far stranger than its rocket launchers. From a 4-week impossible deadline to feuding customizers, a sidekick who became the star, and green headlights that couldn't actually work at night, this iconic Chrysler Imperial's real story is wilder than any episode. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about the Green Hornet's Black Beauty. Fact 1. Built in an impossible 4-week deadline. When producer William Dozier called Dean Jeffries in early 1966 to build the Black Beauty for the upcoming Green Hornet television series, he was asking for something that should have been impossible. Jeffries received the call in mid-April of 1966, and Dozier needed not just one, but 2 fully functional custom cars delivered to ABC Studios by May 11th. That gave Jeffries barely 4 weeks to complete a project that would normally take several months. And to put that timeline in perspective, when one of the later owners tried to restore just the wiring on one of these cars decades later, it took him an entire year to finish that single task alone. The pressure was enormous because these weren't going to be simple prop cars that just looked good on camera. The Green Hornet producers wanted every gadget to actually work, since this was long before the era of computer-generated visual effects, which meant Jeffries had to engineer functioning rocket launchers, rotating headlights, pop-up surveillance equipment, and deployable weapons systems all from scratch. He was essentially building 2 rolling arsenals disguised as luxury sedans in less time than most people take to plan a wedding. Despite the crushing deadline, Jeffries managed to deliver the first Black Beauty right on schedule. To accomplish this near miracle, he worked around the clock with his small team, fabricating custom parts, installing military-grade hydraulic systems, and hand-building the various gadgets that would become the car's signature features. The studio was so impressed with what he created under such impossible time constraints that the Black Beauty became one of television's most iconic vehicles, even though the show itself would only last a single season of 26 episodes before being cancelled. Fact 2. Jeffries turned down the Batmobile first. Before Dean Jeffries ever touched the Black Beauty, producer William Dozier had approached him with what could have been the job of a lifetime: building the Batmobile for the upcoming Batman television series in 1965. Jeffries agreed to take on the project, and immediately started working on his vision, which was based on a 1959 Cadillac, and would have been much darker and more menacing than what eventually appeared on screen. He had already begun the work, even raising the tail fins on the Cadillac, when Dozier called him back with bad news. The studio had moved up the production schedule and now needed the Batmobile completed in just 3 weeks instead of the timeline they had originally discussed. Jeffries, who was known throughout Hollywood for his meticulous craftsmanship and attention to detail, made a decision that would change television history. He turned down the job, telling the producers that he simply could not create quality work in such a short amount of time, and refused to put his name on something he knew would be rushed and substandard. Desperate to meet their deadline, Dozier quickly contacted another legendary customizer, George Barris, who managed to build the iconic Batmobile in roughly 3 weeks using a 1955 Lincoln Futura show car as his starting point. Although the Batmobile became a massive success, Dozier was reportedly unhappy with how the rushed job turned out. When it came time to create a vehicle for the Green Hornet the following year, Dozier specifically sought out Jeffries again, this time asking him to build something that would rival the Batmobile but be more realistic and functional, which is exactly what Jeffries delivered with the Black Beauty. Fact 3. The paint job cost a fortune. The Black Beauty's sinister appearance wasn't achieved with a simple coat of black paint, but rather through an incredibly labor-intensive process that made the car's finish one of the most expensive aspects of the entire build. Dean Jeffries applied 30 separate coats of a special metal flake, pure black-green pearl of essence lacquer, to the Chrysler Imperial, with each coat being hand-rubbed to achieve a brilliant high-gloss finish that would look perfect under the harsh lights of a television studio and hold up to the scrutiny of close-up camera shots. This painstaking paint process was just one component of the car's total construction cost, which came to a reported $50,000 for both vehicles. To put that amount in perspective, $50,000 in 1966 would be equivalent to over $450,000 in today's money, making these two of the most expensive television props ever created at that time. The studio considered it a worthwhile investment because they needed the Black Beauty to rival the popularity of the Batmobile, which had become a cultural phenomenon on ABC's Batman series. Jeffries took immense pride in the flawless finish he had achieved, knowing that the smooth, reflective surface would photograph beautifully and give the car the menacing, sophisticated look that the producers wanted for their crime-fighting vehicle. The name Black Beauty itself was meant to emphasize the car's dark elegance, and Jeffries felt that his mirror-like paint job perfectly captured that spirit. The multiple layers of lacquer created a depth and richness to the black color that made the car appear almost liquid in certain lighting conditions, and the metal flake added subtle sparkle that gave the vehicle an otherworldly quality when it rolled through night scenes on screen. Fact 4. The studio ruined the perfect paint. After Dean Jeffries had spent countless hours perfecting the Black Beauty's spectacular glossy finish, carefully applying and hand-rubbing 30 coats of lacquer to create a mirror-like surface, the studio made a decision that absolutely devastated him. Within just a few days of receiving the completed car, the production team discovered a major problem when they started filming test shots with the Black Beauty under the bright stage lights that were standard in television studios during the 1960s. The large, flat body surfaces of the Chrysler Imperial, combined with that beautiful shiny paintwork, created way too many reflections from the lighting equipment, which meant that cameras were picking up glare and unwanted images bouncing off the car's hood, roof, and side panels. These reflections were ruining shots and making it difficult to film the car properly, so the studio made the practical but heartbreaking decision to repaint the entire vehicle in a near-flat satin black finish that would absorb light instead of reflecting it. Jeffries was crushed by this decision because he had worked so hard to make sure all the custom metalwork was finished to a high enough level to be painted in gloss black and stand up to the camera's scrutiny. He later recalled his disappointment, simply stating that the studio's hasty repaint job just ruined the whole thing. The irony was that viewers watching at home on their television sets would never have been able to appreciate the difference between his perfect glossy finish and the flat paint anyway, due to the limited picture quality of 1960s television broadcasts. But for Jeffries, it represented a compromise of his craftsmanship and artistic vision that he never quite got over. Fact 5. The green headlights were useless. One of the Black Beauty's most distinctive features was its rotating headlights that could supposedly flip from regular white lights to special green ones that the studio publicity materials described as infragreen headlights, which were meant to allow the Green Hornet and Kato to see in the dark while remaining nearly invisible to criminals they were pursuing. According to the show's comic book spin-offs, these headlights used polarized light that worked in combination with special polarized vision filters built into translucent green sun visor-like panels that could be pulled down inside the car, giving the heroes a technological advantage during nighttime crime-fighting missions. The problem was that none of this actually worked in real life because the car's headlight clusters were never actually rigged to flip at all. The green filters were simply installed over the regular headlights and stayed deployed constantly throughout filming, which meant the car was essentially driving around with what amounted to dimmed, tinted headlights that provided almost no useful illumination. If anyone had tried to actually drive the Black Beauty at night using those green-filtered headlights, they would have been nearly blind and probably would have crashed into something within minutes. The studio worked around this major limitation by using camera tricks and careful planning, but the green headlights remained one of those television magic moments where something looks incredibly cool on screen but would be completely impractical in the real world. Related comic books tried to explain the technology behind the infragreen lights to make them sound scientifically plausible, but ultimately they were just colored lenses over regular bulbs that looked mysterious and high-tech to viewers watching at home. Fact 6. Most night scenes were shot in daylight. Since the Black Beauty's green-filtered headlights provided almost no actual illumination and would have made real nighttime filming nearly impossible, the production team had to rely heavily on a classic Hollywood technique called day for night, where scenes are filmed during daylight hours but manipulated through camera settings and filters to create the illusion of nighttime. This technique was commonly used in the 1960s to save money and avoid the technical challenges of night shoots, and it worked reasonably well in the early episodes of The Green Hornet when the crew took care to properly expose the film and use the right filters. However, as the single-season series progressed and production schedules became tighter, the quality of the day-for-night effect started to deteriorate significantly. The crew began executing the process less carefully, and the results became increasingly unconvincing to anyone watching at home. By the later episodes, viewers could clearly see bright daylight in scenes that were supposed to be taking place in the middle of the night, with visible blue skies, harsh shadows from the sun, and lighting that obviously came from daytime conditions rather than moonlight or street lamps. The situation got so bad that audiences actually needed context from the dialogue or other clues within the scene to understand that the action was meant to be happening at night, because the visual evidence on screen suggested otherwise. This problem remained noticeable whether people watched the episodes during their original network airing or caught them later in syndication, and modern viewers watching restored versions of the show can see just how poorly some of these nighttime scenes were faked, making it one of the more amusing technical shortcomings of the series. Fact 7. Many gadgets never appeared on screen. The Green Hornet was cancelled so abruptly after just one season that many of the elaborate gadgets Dean Jeffries had painstakingly built into the Black Beauty never got their moment in front of the cameras. The show only lasted 26 episodes before ABC pulled the plug, which meant the writers never had the opportunity to showcase all of the features that had been engineered into the car at considerable expense and effort during those frantic 4 weeks of construction. One of the most notable unused features was a pair of brooms that could deploy from behind the rear wheels, designed to sweep away tire tracks when the Green Hornet and Kato needed to cover their trail after driving through dirt or mud while pursuing criminals. These brooms were fully functional and could actually be lowered and raised using the control panel in the back seat, but they never appeared in a single episode. Similarly, the car had hidden compartments built into the C-pillars, which are the rear roof supports on either side of the back window, and these compartments were specifically designed to store weapons and other crime-fighting equipment where they could be quickly accessed during emergencies. Perhaps most surprising was the existence of a secret closet that contained a complete change of clothing for the Green Hornet, allowing Britt Reed to transform into his masked alter ego while on the move. This feature would have made for some interesting storytelling possibilities and demonstrated the level of preparation that went into the Black Beauty's design as a mobile headquarters for crime fighting. The fact that all of these carefully engineered features went unused stands as a reminder of how quickly the show's cancellation came and how much potential remained unexplored. Fact 8. Military surplus parts powered the weapons. When Dean Jeffries faced the challenge of making all of the Black Beauty's elaborate gadgets actually function on camera, he made an unconventional decision that set his work apart from typical Hollywood prop building. Instead of using standard off-the-shelf industrial components like hydraulic rams, electric motors, and screw jacks that were commonly available from commercial suppliers, Jeffries went hunting for military surplus hardware that had originally been designed for use in fighter planes and helicopters during and after World War II. His reasoning was both practical and clever, based on the understanding that television stunt cars led incredibly hard lives compared to regular vehicles. They would be repeatedly driven at high speeds, subjected to sudden stops and sharp turns, and constantly operated under stressful conditions that would quickly break down equipment that wasn't built to military specifications. Jeffries figured that if a particular motor or hydraulic system had been engineered to be reliable enough to work on a fighter plane or helicopter, where failure could mean life or death for a pilot, then it would certainly be tough enough to survive the demands of a television production schedule. Most of the military surplus parts he acquired ran on 24-volt electrical systems, which was different from the standard 12-volt systems used in civilian automobiles, but Jeffries adapted them by running the motors on 12 volts instead, which had the added benefit of slowing down their operation speed and making the movements of the various gadgets more dramatic and visible on camera. This creative use of military surplus technology meant that the Black Beauty's rocket launchers, rotating headlights, and deployable weapons systems were built with genuine aircraft-grade components. Fact 9. ABC was called the two-car network. During the Green Hornet's brief run on television, an article published in TV Guide made reference to some less than flattering comments that were circulating within the entertainment industry about ABC's programming strategy. Critics and competitors had started calling ABC the two-car network, a nickname that poked fun at the fact that the network was simultaneously airing both Batman and the Green Hornet, two action shows that each featured a heavily customized crime-fighting vehicle as a central element of their appeal. The nickname reflected a perception among some industry insiders that ABC was relying too heavily on a similar formula for both shows, essentially trying to duplicate the massive success of the Batmobile by creating another spectacular vehicle that could capture the public's imagination and generate toy sales and merchandise opportunities. Both the Batmobile and the Black Beauty were expensive custom builds that featured elaborate gadgets and weaponry, and both shows were produced by William Dozier, who clearly understood the marketing value of having a memorable hero car that kids would want to see in action every week. The comment also carried an underlying suggestion that ABC lacked creativity or variety in its programming approach, as if the network had decided that the secret to success was simply putting masked vigilantes into impressive custom cars and hoping lightning would strike twice. While Batman had indeed become a cultural phenomenon with high ratings and widespread popularity, the Green Hornet struggled to find its audience despite having all the same elements, including a charismatic hero, a skilled sidekick, and a vehicle packed with high-tech features that should have made it just as appealing to viewers. Fact 10. Both cars chased each other on screen. Dean Jeffries built two separate Black Beauty cars for the Green Hornet, with the first being the fully functional hero car that contained all the working gadgets, and the second serving primarily as a backup vehicle for promotional appearances and car shows. Throughout most of the show's single season, these two cars were never seen together on screen. But there was one notable exception that gave viewers a unique and somewhat surreal moment in the series. In an episode with the bizarre title Corpse of the Year, the production found a creative way to use both Black Beauties simultaneously by staging a chase sequence where one Black Beauty pursued another Black Beauty through the streets. The exact plot details that required two identical custom Chrysler Imperials to be chasing each other remain a bit unclear, but the scene likely involved some kind of impersonator or duplicate villain storyline that justified having what appeared to be two versions of the same car in pursuit of one another. This remains the only time in the entire series that both Black Beauties appeared together in the same scene, making it a noteworthy moment for car enthusiasts and fans who pay attention to such production details. The scene also demonstrated the practical value of having built two cars instead of just one, as it allowed the directors and stunt coordinators to create action sequences that would have been impossible with a single vehicle. For viewers watching the episode when it originally aired, seeing two Black Beauties on screen at once must have been a strange and memorable sight, even if the storyline that brought them together was less than conventional. Fact 11. Sold for just $10,000 after 26 years. In 1992, a Green Hornet enthusiast named Dan Goodman managed to purchase the original Black Beauty No. 1, which was the primary hero car used throughout most of the television series filming, for the remarkably low price of just $10,000. He bought it from the former transportation director of 20th Century Fox, who had apparently been holding onto the car for years after the show's cancellation without fully appreciating what a piece of television history it represented. What made this purchase price even more astonishing was the condition of the vehicle when Goodman acquired it. The Black Beauty had logged only 17,000 miles since it rolled off the factory floor as a brand new Chrysler Imperial, which meant it had barely been driven at all considering it was now 26 years old. The car was in perfect mechanical condition with the original custom wheels still intact, and most of the body modifications that Dean Jeffries had created still present and functional, suggesting that it had been well maintained and carefully stored during much of its time off camera. The only real issue with the car was that it had become badly weathered over the years, likely from spending time exposed to the elements on studio lots or in inadequate storage facilities, which had damaged the paint and some of the cosmetic details that made it look so impressive on screen. Despite these cosmetic problems, the fact that such an iconic television vehicle with such low mileage and solid mechanical condition could be purchased for only $10,000 seems almost impossible to believe, especially considering that a stock 1966 Chrysler Imperial in similar condition would have been worth a significant portion of that amount even without the custom modifications. Fact 12. A legal battle over restoration rights. After Dan Goodman purchased the weathered Black Beauty No. 1 in 1992, he made what seemed like the logical decision to hire Dean Jeffries himself to restore the car to its original glory, figuring that nobody would understand the vehicle better than the man who had built it nearly 3 decades earlier. However, what should have been a straightforward restoration project quickly turned into a complicated legal nightmare that strained the relationship between the car's new owner and its original creator. The problems began when the restoration costs started climbing well beyond what Goodman had initially expected or budgeted for, leading to disputes over who should pay for the additional work that Jeffries deemed necessary to properly restore the car. These cost overrun disagreements escalated into more serious legal battles over who actually owned the rights to use the Black Beauty name and likeness. with both parties claiming they had legitimate interests in controlling how the restored car could be displayed, marketed, or used for promotional purposes. The legal disputes dragged on throughout the restoration process in 1993, creating tension and uncertainty about whether the project would ever be completed or if the car would end up stuck in legal limbo. Despite all the courtroom drama and disagreements between Goodman and Jeffries, the legendary customizer eventually did finish the restoration work, bringing the Black Beauty back to the stunning condition that he had originally envisioned when he first built it back in 1966, complete with the glossy black paint finish that the studio had originally painted over for practical filming reasons. Fact 13. The show lost $40,000 per episode. The Green Hornet's cancellation wasn't just about disappointing ratings, but also about the harsh financial reality that ABC was hemorrhaging money on every single episode that aired. The network calculated that it was losing an estimated $40,000 per episode, which in 1966 was an absolutely staggering amount of money that the network simply couldn't justify continuing to lose week after week, especially when the show wasn't attracting the kind of audience numbers that would allow them to charge advertisers premium rates for commercial time. ABC had originally planned to produce 30 episodes for the first season, but the combination of poor ratings and mounting financial losses caused the network to pull the plug after only 26 episodes had been completed and aired. The situation became even more desperate when the producers tried a last-ditch effort to save the show by arranging a two-part crossover event with the much more popular Batman series, hoping that Batman's massive fan base would tune in to see the Caped Crusader team up with the Green Hornet and Kato, and then stick around to become regular viewers of the struggling show. Unfortunately, even this crossover strategy failed to provide the ratings boost that everyone had hoped for, and ABC executives decided they had seen enough. The final original episode of The Green Hornet aired on March 17, 1967, leaving 4 unproduced episodes from the original 30-episode order that would never be made. The network did continue to air reruns of the completed episodes through July 14th of that same year, but the show's fate had been sealed by the unsustainable financial losses. Fact 14. In Hong Kong, it was The Kato Show. While The Green Hornet struggled to find an audience in America and was ultimately cancelled after a single season, the show experienced a completely different fate when it aired in Hong Kong, where Bruce Lee had been raised before moving to the United States. Hong Kong audiences were so captivated by Bruce Lee's performance as Kato that the show was actually renamed and marketed as The Kato Show, completely flipping the billing to make the sidekick character the star and relegating the titular Green Hornet to secondary status. This reversal of the show's hierarchy perfectly demonstrated just how much Lee's charisma and martial arts abilities resonated with Asian audiences who saw him as a hometown hero who had made it onto American television. The popularity of Lee's character became so dominant that it even influenced how merchandise was marketed, with one particularly notable example being a coloring book that was titled Kato's Revenge, featuring the Green Hornet, which literally put Kato's name first and made it clear that the Green Hornet was now just a supporting character in his own show. When Bruce Lee later returned to Hong Kong in 1971, after struggling to find substantial acting work in Hollywood following the show's cancellation, he was shocked to discover that he was instantly recognized everywhere he went, with fans calling out to him as Kato and asking for autographs. This unexpected celebrity status in his homeland eventually led to opportunities in Hong Kong cinema that would transform him into an international martial arts superstar, proving that sometimes failure in one market can open doors to success in another. Fact 15. The rear exit went through a candy billboard. The Black Beauty's secret garage beneath Britt Reed's mansion featured one of the most elaborate and theatrical entry and exit systems ever created for a television show, complete with a fictional advertising billboard that served as the perfect cover for the car's comings and goings. The entire transformation sequence began when Britt Reed activated a set of hidden switches on a secret control panel concealed behind a tool wall in his regular garage, which would trigger a complex series of mechanical operations that looked like something out of a James Bond movie. The system worked by first lowering the garage lights to create darkness, then extending clamps that would attach to the bumpers of Reed's personal car, which was a Chrysler 300 convertible that he drove during his daytime activities as a wealthy newspaper publisher. The garage floor would then rotate on a massive turntable mechanism, lowering Reed's civilian vehicle down into the hidden underground space while simultaneously bringing the Black Beauty up from its concealed storage area below. Once the rotation was complete, the clamps would release from the Black Beauty's bumpers, freeing it to roll forward toward the exit. Rather than exiting through the front of the garage where neighbors or passers-by might see the distinctive custom car, the Black Beauty would drive out through a hidden rear door that opened directly behind a billboard. This billboard advertised a completely fictional product called Kissin' Candy Mints and featured the cheerful advertising slogan, "How sweet they are," and it was designed to split down the middle and swing open like a pair of doors, allowing the crime-fighting vehicle to emerge onto the street as if materializing out of nowhere.